Welcome everyone. Elgin Community Complex Board Meeting, Wednesday, May 14th. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:02. First, we'll begin with the confirmation of the agenda. Any changes, additions? Technology is working. That's good. Verified. And I have a resolution to approve the agenda.
That the board adopts the agenda for the meeting of May 14th, 2025.
Mover and seconder, please. Member LaRose moves, member Serna seconds, all in favor. Is carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll proceed with delegation. We have Christine Scrimger for the presentation of our draft audited 2024 financial statements. Welcome.
Thank
Happy
you.
to see you again.
Right, to turn this on, or is it?
I
hear
think
me
you're
fine,
fine,
I'm
yeah.
sure. Perfect, all right. I believe you have the draft statements in your packages, and I'll go through them page by page. Please don't hesitate to stop me and ask me any questions that you might have. As I'm going through them, or getting questions arise from some of my explanations. So, draw your attention first to the independent auditor's report. So this is my auditor's report saying that I'm independent of the arena that I used to own in the community complex, as well as I would also like to say that even though I am the auditor for the town of Elmer, I do a significant amount of work just on these financial statements to ensure the expenditures that are charged to this complex are actually complex expenditures, making sure, even though, as I said, we do the audit of the town, and as well with payroll, we do that as well, and with everything. So that's the independence part, and they are dated as of today's date, which is under Canadian auditing standards. Those charged with governance need to approve the financial statements. They then, once they're approved by you, will be passed on to both the councils that participate in this complex, and then we'll get approved at that level as well, and get consolidated half and half in each one of your financial statements. All right, so I'll go forward to the statement of financial position. This would be better known as your balance sheet. I don't have a lot to say on the balance sheet piece. I come down to what's called net financial assets. So that's really the money you would have at the end of the day. If all your bills were paid and you had paid off all your liabilities, and you can see there it's up about $40,000, which is really what the reserves are up when we get to the reserve schedule. So any surplus that comes in from the add-on to the ice time gets put into that reserve as well. There's interest earned as well on that reserve. Underneath that line is the non-financial assets, which is your capital assets. This obviously this building being the major one. And the decrease there is mainly the amortization. So that's the using up of those assets over the life of the arena. Again, I'll remind you that those costs are at historical costs, so they're not at what the value is of today's date or what that would be worth in today's dollars. And then prepaid expenses, your insurance policy that covers this arena does not end with right on December 31st. So there's a prepaid portion that gets paid in 2024 that relates to 2025. So that's the majority of what that prepaid is. Coming down to accumulated surplus at the end of the year of $6.8 million. And the decrease from the previous year is really that amortization that I mentioned. 250, I was gonna get 256,000. So that's the main decrease there. Any questions on the balance sheet at all? Moving on, we'll get to the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this has 3 columns. The budget for 2024 is approved, the actual for 2024, and then the actual for 2023. And this really is a good news story. As you can see, revenues are up significantly, especially in the ice rental area. And that flows down really to the surplus that we'll talk about in a minute. And they really, the rest of the revenues are fairly consistent. The residential youth ice subsidy is based on the youth usage, obviously. And it's very consistent to last year's. Under expenditures, the amortization, the third line down, that's the 256,000 I mentioned when I was talking about the balance sheet. And that is not a budgeted item, that is a use, non-cash item that flows through, using that with the capital assets. And so, is not part of what, the participating municipalities, when they pay their shares, that's not included in that. Nor is it included in your budget, as I mentioned. So if you take that out of your total expenditures, so the 1.4 million minus the 256,000, your costs were about $100,000 less than budgeted. And that much less than last year's too, a little bit more than that. So obviously a very well organized budget and spending on part of the arena this year. Coming down to that overall decrease there, the 604,000, but the thing that I think both of you, all the municipalities would be interested in is the town of Elmer and township of Malahide. You can see there that we budgeted 313,000 from each one of those municipalities, and it actually came in at 205,000. So significant savings there. So the two pieces to that, one is the revenues were up, two, the expenditures were down. So good internal controls over both sides. Coming down the excess of expenditure over revenue, and really that $192,000 deficit represents the amortization less the new capital assets, less what we transferred over to the reserves. These are PSAP financial statements, so they look a little different than what's internally produced, as you're well aware. Coming down to that accumulated surplus again at the end of the year, the same number that was on the balance sheet. Any questions about any of the specifics? The budget to actuals and the prior years are pretty consistent with what was budgeted or below budget, which is obviously what you want to see. The next statement is the statement of cash flows, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. This is just the increases and decreases of the non-cash items on the balance sheet. As you're aware, this 201,000 is really the monies that we put over into the reserve fund. The actual expenditures are always paid through the town of Elmer. For instance, the payroll would be paid through the town of Elmer's bank account. That's why on the balance sheet, you always have a due to town of Elmer because of that situation, or due from town of Elmer, depending on where you're at. And then the next statement is the statement of change in net assets. Basically, this is where you see the amortization of the tangible capital assets, your new asset additions, which were not significant this year, just 23,175. And then a little bit of a change in the prepaid expenses, which I mentioned with the insurance. Coming down to that net financial assets at the end of the year, equal to the balance sheet. We then have the notes to the financial statements, and these are standard notes you'll see in the municipal financial statement. I will draw your attention to two that I think this board would be interested in. I'll draw your attention to note number 4, which breaks down that surplus. So this is where you see those reserve funds. So the 243 is where we put that surcharge into that reserve fund. And then there was some interest earned as well. And that was both of those balances. And then as you can see, the majority of your surpluses in the intangible capital assets. And then at the back of the financial statements is a breakdown of the assets by categories. And as you can see, the land alone at $370,000 cost is not what it would obviously be worth in today's dollars.
Thank you for.
Go ahead.
So with depreciation of the building, the repairs that we are making to it, does that change?
So you have what's called a tangible capital asset policy. So anything over $10,000, then you would capitalize. So it would depend on whether the repairs were just of a repair nature or if they extend the life of the asset beyond a year. So if they do extend the life, then you set them up, you take them out of the expenses, you put them on the balance sheet, and then you would start amortizing. So your amortization costs would go up in that case.
Thank you. All in all, a good news audit, revenues up, expenditures down. Would you agree?
That's what I guess.
Perfect.
I will, and I've commented on this every year, so you'd be sorry if I didn't comment, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure, but, and I know that you have some, hopefully, some expenditures happening in the current year that you're in now. But just keeping in mind, as you know, that anything that this building is a relatively new complex compared to some, of the complexes around that I do 11 other municipalities, so I see all sorts of different, stages of, repair, need of repair. But again, any capital that, happens on a building this size would obviously be significant, and I know you're aware of that, but I mention it every year to keep safe for that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Sounds like we're good for another year.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Have the motion, please.
That the report respecting the 2024 audited statements be received as information, and that the board approve the 2024 audited statements provided by Christine Scrimgeour of Scrimgeour and Company.
Mover and seconder, please. Member Barber moves, member Chapman seconds, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you again. Have a great summer. Next, we'll move to approval of previous minutes. We have the resolution, please.
That the minutes of the February 26, 2025 regular meeting of the ECC board be received, be approved.
Mover and seconder, please. Member Chapman moved, member Lewis seconds, all any errors or omissions? We're asked for vote. Any errors, or omissions? All those in favor? Thanks, Carrie. Next, we move to action items. Item 6.1, first staff report, Director of Financial Services. What do we have today? The first quarterly financial, so Q1. Heather?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you and to members of the board. I didn't have anything extraordinary at Q1. I normally don't, which is good news. So it's still early in the year, but all revenues are trending similarly to last year, except for hall rentals are up about 10%. So that equates to about a $3,000 increase. I had some questions on youth subsidy. That's actually a revenue line that half of them, each part of the municipality contributes. So half comes from Elmer, half comes from Allied. And historically, we budgeted about 55,000 in prior years to COVID. So when those revenues never materialized because we didn't have the youth hours, we dropped that budget down to 35,000 to be conservative, which was similar to 2021, 2022 timeframe. Now that those revenues have materialized, we'll probably redo the budget in 2026, increasing that subsidy line back up. So because it is based on the youth revenue, if the youth revenue materializes, then that increases. So other than that, I didn't have anything else specific. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Open it up for questions. Anything that needs further clarification? Sounds like there are no concerns at this point. Everything is trending as planned. We have the resolution, please.
That the report ECC 10-25 entitled East Elgin Community Complex Quarterly Financial Summary Report Q1 be received for information.
Mover and seconder, please. Member Crooked moves. Member Cerna second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? Oh, hang on. One more question?
One more question.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that the debit credit fees are a higher value. Is there some way we recoup that, or is that all just paid out of our pocket as a convenience?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So Owen's working on the town of Elmer side, we're working on an option for credit cards, which basically passes on the fees to the user. Now, we don't know if it's compatible at this point, that model with the new recreation software, but we could possibly, we're looking into negotiating with the current provider, which is Moneris, to look at passing on those fees. So as the revenue is increasing, the fees are increasing, which rolls up into that office expenditure line. So yeah, we'll definitely look at that. We just need to get the recreation software in and running and working. And then we can start that negotiation. We'll bring that back to the board. Because currently we don't have fees for the town for that service. We don't offer credit card. But obviously the complex has a substantial amount of credit card fees that we'd love to offset.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. Any other questions? All those in favor? That is carried. We'll move to the next report, 6.1B is the compressor replacement. Who's speaking to this one? Jim?
For the chair to members of the board, before you the report issue an RFT for the replacement of the first of 3 compressors. Staff's recommendation is to replace the screw compressor with a like for like replacement. The compressor is included in the 2025 capital plan. If any members have questions, we can do our best to answer.
No for questions? Member Whitner?
Thank you. So we now have screw compressors now.
Correct.
Okay. And they've got a pretty good life cycle, no much problem.
They have, so we're realizing their full life potential. Currently, we're at our highest. We're at 68,000 hours would be the highest of our 3 compressors. We've been planning hours on these to stagger our replacement so that we're not racking up the hours on 3 compressors and they all need replacement at the same time. So this compressor, through a vibration analysis, was deemed to be in the worst shape. That would have been 2 years ago. So we focused hours on that compressor so that we get the full life out of it before replacement.
Less moving parts. And how about the energy efficiency?
Screws are actually typically more energy efficient than a recip. The problem with going to a different style now would be changing everything. It's a different motor. It'd be running new suction and discharge lines. You're running a new glycol loop for an oil cooler. And all of that to probably put in more maintenance expense. Recips typically need more annual and biannual maintenance.
What's the warranty? Just curious.
I'd have to reach out for that one.
Thank you.
Anything else to clarify? Any other questions? Seeing any, have the motion, please.
That report EACC 07-25, our FP compressor replacement be received for information, and that staff be directed to proceed with preparation and advertising a request for tender RFT for replacement of the compressor at the East Elgin Community Complex as outlined in the report.
Mover and seconder, please. Mover moves, member of each seconds. Any further debate? None. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to 6.1C is the report on the draft expression of interest for the arcade style games. Rob?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last board meeting, staff were given direction to prepare an expression of interest for the arcade style games for lobby. So what you have in the agenda is a draft expression of interest. Once the board gives us final approval, we can get this out the door straight away. You'll see it's fairly wide open. In one section, if you go to the attachment, it's the evaluation of the proposals, and we tried to spell it out. We're going to evaluate based on the most favorable proposal to the board. So the structure of the financial agreement, the risk and liability assigned to the board, and the decision-making oversight options afforded to the board. So basically, it's leasing the space with no caveat for revenue sharing. You might get a proposal that's zero lease the space and all revenue sharing. You might get a proposal that puts all the onus for repairs on the board, and you might say, no, you're not have to worry about any of the liability. And then the oversight. So they might give you, a full lease arrangement, heavy sharing, but they get control over which games they go in. And I thought those were really the biggest three things that I took away from the last discussion that we had is maximize revenue, but we also want some control on those games as well. So those are kind of the evaluation criteria in there. So we'll get that out. We can get it back and evaluate that. And I think it says it's the board, I think said September they want to get, which makes sense. It's the busiest time starting September, October for, I think it's a 3 or 4 month trial over there. So pending the board's approval, we can get that out the door straight away.
That, any questions? Member Chapman?
I just have comments
Yeah.
through you. I still disapprove of the arcades, and I just want to make that very clear that I don't believe that they belong in the facility. It's a place to expand activity, and arcades are sedentary and they don't expand creativity and all those things. So I'm very opposed against the arcades.
Thank you for that. Anything else, any questions, any further clarification on what is being proposed for the expression of interest? And it's still for a trial period. We'll proceed with the motion, please.
Can we just have a recorded vote? Is that possible?
Certainly. You have a motion?
Report EDCC 08-25 entitled Draft EOI Arcade Style Games be received for information, and that staff be directed to proceed with the advertising of an expression of interest for the provision of arcade style games.
Mover and seconder, please. Member Lewis moves, member Rosie second. Any further debate or comments before the vote? Comments, the vote please.
Counselor Disrosier,
Yes.
Counselor Chapman,
No.
Counselor Leach, Counselor Cerna,
Yes.
Counselor Lewis,
Yes.
Counselor Dewinski.
Yes.
Sorry, I should be saying board member Barber.
Yes.
Board member Whitner,
Yes.
Mayor Cookett,
No.
Mayor Giguere.
Yes.
Yep. And the motion is carried 8-2.
Thank you. Moving on to 6.1B, this is the Canada Day update. Anything else that you? Okay.
Thank you. Through you to members of the board. So my report this evening is a good news report. Staff were successful in obtaining the Celebrate Canada grant in the amount of $8,000. All the event offerings, including in the report, have been secured. Food vendors, family-friendly entertainment, photo booth, petting zoo, all those things. This year, we have decided to add a bike rodeo to the event for the community. We're just in the early stages of planning this. Staff can confirm one platinum sponsorship, and we're working with the township to obtain additional sponsors. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Great. Shaping up well. With good funding. Rob.
If I could, I'd just like to remind the board that both municipalities committed to this for this funding application to be the Canada Day funding. So we'll probably be back to the board with a similar request next year because we did get $8,000, which was great. And that's by both the town and the township working together to commit that formally. So we would probably be looking for that similar commitment in the future.
Almost doesn't feel like it needs a resolution from the board. Any questions on how the plans are evolving? Member DeRosier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, is staff able to confirm the total cost for this event? And with the $8,000 Canadian or Canada grant, how much sponsorship is required to break even?
Like the overall budget, in other words, like how much from the grant. how
Yeah, I'm
much
just
from-
curious, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. no. Ron?
I can maybe comment on that. This event does not, break even for sure. There's a budget for it, that was approved by the board, have to look at the final one.
So we're still contributing, but less than last year because of the.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be nice if you have those numbers to give a ballpark of what our contribution is.
The other thing that, we've sort of discussed too, is this is one difficult event to get sponsorships. The Canada Day really looks like it should be a government sort of sponsored celebration. So all the events that Danielle reaches out to people for sponsorship, this is probably the most challenging one.
Yeah.
And she does have some great platinum sponsors in the community that step up for a lot of these requests, but this is unlike, some of the other stuff that.
More of a cause or.
Yeah, the free public skating, the other facilities we have around town, people are really happy to step up and sponsor that, but. And they kind of looked at like government. We should, be, and we do a lot. The kids can also do the bulk of the lifting with their fireworks. If we recall, they've got like 25,000 they put into fireworks. So they do a lot of the lifting on this event as well.
Member Leach, did you have a question?
I do, thank you, Madam Chair. Could you kind of flesh out some more of the bike review aspect? Will it have a safety component, or is it going to be spearheaded by a service club, or is it still like very bare bones?
For you, it's still very bare bones at this time. The Elmer police are on board, so a safety component will likely be included in that.
Yeah, we just do the current numbers. So basically you're projecting 10,000 revenue. And your expenses are 18, additional money. So if I may, Madam Chair, Danielle does have the numbers here. We just took out, the municipal contribution. She had budgeted, 5,000 historically this year. She was budgeting 4,000 historically for each municipality. She just updated the numbers to the $8,000 revenue for the grant. And then estimated expenses are coming in at around 18,000. So subsidizing, so 10,000 of it. So not saying that that would come all from community sponsorships, but between the township and the town, if they're contributing and community sponsorships, there's about a $8,300 gap.
So the more sponsorships we can get, and the less the municipal contribution. Paula?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, does the board ever see the detailed expenses breakdown to see kind of what's costing us what? Just out of, just pure curiosity.
Would you be interested in seeing previous years or a budget, or at a future board meeting, seeing the final actual?
Has the board ever looked at that? I was again curious.
Yeah, this spreadsheet comes in a report to the board when we. Like in September, you'll see it again.
Yeah.
You see the breakdown there.
Okay,
Probably saw it last September. It's been
Right.
almost a year.
okay, so we'll make sure that our next meeting, once it's all said and done, then you have the specific breakdown, so
Yeah.
that's.
Because the grant goes out in November, so I think we come right after the event, kind of. Basic summary, not all the expenses are in yet, and then sort of an approval for next year.
Yeah.
And commitment from the board to get started with all of the applications, yeah.
Satisfactory? Yeah, Member Zinsky?
Madam Chair, I would like to commend the staff for applying for the grant, because if we don't apply for them, definitely won't get them. So congratulations on applying and getting the grant. We all benefit from that. Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll consider a motion.
The motion is that report EECC 09-25 entitled event update 2025 Canada Day celebrations be received for information.
Mover and seconder. Member Whitner moves, member Serna seconds. Any further question or debate? None, all those in favor? Motion is carried. I think those are all the reports. So we go to 6.2. This is a notice of motion that we received at our last meeting. Do you want to read the motion and then we'll open it up for a debate?
Whereas Cameron Reed, a talented young athlete from our community, has achieved significant accomplishments in the world of hockey. And whereas Cameron's accomplishments serve as an inspiration to our community and a role model for young athletes. And whereas Cameron has been a proud member of various local hockey organizations, including the Elmer Minor Hockey Association, and advanced to Canada at international levels. And therefore be it resolved that the EACC Board of Management hereby acknowledges Cameron Reed's outstanding achievements in hockey. And be it further resolved that the EACC Board of Management approve the following. Number one, a display of recognition that the Board of Management approved the purchase of a display frame for an autographed jersey from Cameron Reed's current team, the Kitchener Rangers. The Reed family has generously agreed to provide the jersey for free. And number two, event consideration that the board directs staff to explore the possibility of organizing an event to honor Cam Reed's achievements, including a community skate event where Cam could interact with local residents, especially youth, and inspire the next generation of athletes. And be it finally resolved that the EACC Board of Management extends its heartfelt congratulations to Cameron Reed for his exceptional achievements and expresses pride in his success as a local athlete representing our community on the international stage.
Okay, so mover. Member Serna, a seconder. Member Lewis. So I'll open it up for debate. So just to set the stage to help guide the board with the decision. So I just want to remind or refresh the board on our terms of reference in terms of what the role of the board is. So we are a board of management. So in a nutshell, in section 3 of our terms of reference, we exist to essentially oversee the budget and create policies, develop policies that are then adopted and applied by staff. So the first question then, so I wanted to know to help the board, is there a policy that exists that speaks to recognition or awards or on behalf of the board of management? Is there any existing policy or precedent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've discussed it with Susie significantly, and both Susie and myself have significant experiences with other jurisdictions that have had policies, but we do not have a board policy for recognition.
So that's one thing as a board we have to consider, because this would be technically, we should be making policy-based decisions. So if there isn't a policy to guide us as to how do you do recognition and what happened so this could be a one-off. So there's always a risk with a one-off, and the role of the board is to set policies. So it could be that we may have to consider then that the recommendation is to develop a policy that then would allow staff to explore this suggestion from a member of the board. So I just wanted to clarify sort of typically how the board should be making decisions. In the absence of policy, we can make a one-off recommendation, or we can direct staff to work on a policy. So I'll open it up for debate. Members.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I don't believe this is a one-off, because when I walk in the building, Jack Ballycat is hanging there. Now, he was a record breaker in the OHL for the Sioux Greyhounds, 135 points in 1974, which is, I think, 54 years ago. So he was Elmer's pride and joy at the time. So 54 years later, another young gentleman comes up. We know he's gonna be drafted. He's ranked, I think, 21st in North America. So we know he's going to be drafted to the NHL. So when something, it's like a comet, something's coming around every 54 years. Do we really need a policy to recognize somebody from this town that's destined for greatness? That we have to go through all this bureaucratic BS every 54 years? Like the next guy that comes along 54 years from now, we'll all be dead. Except for you, yeah. I forgot you're a puppy. But anyways, I don't mind the policy. I don't mind doing something like that. There's a lot of people, but when you look at all the greats, and I watched an interview with Gretzky, with Lemieux and Bobby Orr and all that, they all talk about when they were a kid and thinking about the great players they watched, like Beliveau, and I'm trying to, the French guys, you know, and Yvonne Cornway, Guy Lafleur, Gordie Howe, and
Yes.
all those guys. And they all go back when they were a kid watching these people. And we're trying to develop this in this young generation now. So when this kid gets drafted, he's not gonna stick around. He's not gonna be a long time here. He's gonna get drafted and gone. He's gone to whatever team picks him, he's gonna be spending his summer with that team. So we wanna expedite this. So I'm suggesting we do what we have to do, take the jersey, hang it somewhere, have a wall of fame. Have them come here, sign the autographs, do what we gotta do, and then, like, put the cart before the horse. Do what we have to do for him, and then let's do the policy afterwards for everybody else. There's a lot of people, and I'm thinking this, Lexi Bertelson, I know the family, she won under 18 gold medal, she had her picture in the paper. And I know the family, she's from Belmont, but she played bad hockey, she's Belmont. Okay, but she did play minor hockey now, okay? And the other thing I gotta say, Langton. They have a sign there, Langton population, it reminds me, you know, population 500, neighborhood jumps up to cornfield. But they have 4 people that won world gold medals, one in darts, one in Special Olympics or whatever. And their names are on the sign. Okay, they got recognized. I bet you they don't have a policy. They didn't, Norfolk County, and Rob, you're from Norfolk. Do you ever remember a big sign in a policy meeting? That put up that Elizabeth girl's name? They didn't have to go through all that. They've got world recognition medals, boom, they got recognized. And when you take that road from Langton to Simcoe, I think there was a guy there who's a drummer for Tragically Hip. And they go through Bill's Corner, big town. I don't even know where the town is.
So councilors are not, and members are not, so thank you for that.
Yeah,
So
well,
I
I
think,
know, cut me off, but I'm saying, let's recognize this guy right away.
yes, so I just want to make sure that I don't want to add misinformation to the debate. I think some of the examples that you stated, I think are done based on policy, or that we don't actually have the information in the room. So I don't, just because my experience is that when there's a name somewhere, especially nowadays, there's some bureaucratic process just to ensure fairness and consistency and appropriate use of resources. It exists for a reason. But I hear your point. There's always, we could always consider a policy at a later time. But this area is very privileged with a lot of really gifted athletes that have had a lot of achievements. I know in Malahide we had Miss Layla Shelby, who had been part of the World Junior team representing Hockey Canada. So we have a lot of those opportunities. And so we just want to make sure we're consistent and fair. So thank you. And we'll continue the debate. Member Barber.
Thank you. Echoing some of your opening remarks. I don't disagree with the intent. But the process to me is completely wrong. There are people that have come before, there are people that will come later. There have been pioneers that have been an intricate part of the recreation or the sport within the area. And right now, we don't have a practice of recognizing them. The suggestion of the recognition by coming in and meeting the people, that's a different thing other than the posting of or the mounting of the sweater in the lobby.
Right.
That part I'm good with. It's the out of the box recognition of an individual at this particular point without a mechanism in the background to, how do we get there? How does the next person get there? How do the predecessors get recognized for everything that they did? And I'm not saying make an encyclopedia of this. A staff report to say, this is the basic of how we're going to select the people. This is where we're going to put them in the building, as far as the mementos. Or the plaques, if you want that terminology. How we do it is important. And to start at the end and go backwards is just plain wrong. Let's get it right the first time. Make it in an efficient manner.
Yeah.
Recognize Cameron is for his efforts with the interaction.
Yeah.
But the sweater mounting is a whole different deal because you're starting a section in the building that isn't here now.
Right. And
You're
there-
starting at the end and going to the beginning.
And there are costs, there,
The cost is not an issue. Yeah, there will be some costs, but it's not a
But
deal
certainly,
breaker.
yes, and I think because the board's role is to manage risk. I don't know if everybody is aware, but when you recognize a specific individual, there really should be, we need to do our due diligence and do some research, have a criteria. I'm sorry to say that, but in this day and age, you have to do background checks almost. You have to, there should be a process. There are risks associated and we're here to manage risk. So continue the debate. Member
For
Chapman.
you. Chair Spear, I agree totally with what you're saying. It's nice to recognize people for their accomplishments, but you need to have something in place, like you said, to make sure that they're vetted in the right way and that we're putting something up that is in recognition of someone who's deserving. And I don't know Cameron, so it's nothing meant in that way at all. You just want to make sure that if we're going to put something up that's significant and as an example for other children to look up to, you want to make sure that that's the person you want them to be looking up to. And I have to say that there are other really good hockey players in the area who are moving along as well. And I have to say that I've actually spoken to one of them who is on a similar path. So to recognize one and not the other would be, so let's put something in place to make sure that there's a reason that one gets put up and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, because it's not denying the talent, it's not denying the deserving. So where does this fit, even in the role of an arena, like, and so there. So thank you for those remarks. Chair Crooked, Co-Chair Crooked. Member Crooked.
Number whatever.
Yeah.
I think Rick should receive some kind of an award for his comments. Very good, and I found myself kind of agreeing with it when you went through those comments, because you made some really great points, Rick. However, still, I think we need to follow due process, so I agree with pretty much all the comments about that. And I'm sure Cameron will get the award. So no doubt that, I think we will vote that way, but let's get the due process going first.
Member Sherman.
Instant policy. You make the NHL, you hang your sweater up. There's your powers.
We could, ask staff to.
Good, I just did
into
all
that.
that. That's everything.
Member Rosie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, clarification for everyone here who's clearly not current. It's not a sweater, it's a jersey. I'm sure you know that. Very different. So,
Jesus, weather and cold.
also the cost associated, we're looking at a frame. They ballpark around $85 and then staff's time to hang it. So we're looking at probably under $150 all in.
Yeah.
I think having a policy, like implementing a policy is a good thing. I do agree, actually, because I feel like when you bring forward something like this, there are going to be people such as Shelby Laidlaw, such as Bertelson, who are like, hey, like, how come him, not me, right? And they want similar treatment,
Yeah.
understandably so. So I think having a policy for sure is fair, equitable. In saying that, I also feel that the Reed family has been extremely generous. The fact that they're providing the jersey signed, you know, and Cam's offering to take time out of his summer roster to be here. As Rick said, he's going to be drafted in July. That's the timeline we're looking at. And once he is June, yeah, actually June. I was told July, but so if we were going to do any type of recognition event, and when I say recognition event, I'm not thinking anything fancy, a free community skate, which we already do, him being here, skating with residents. It's really not a lot. I would hope he would bring his 2 gold medals, not 1, 2 gold medals.
Yeah.
And be there to represent his OHL team as well. So I don't think it's much, and I feel like if we are to defer this motion to as a result of creating this policy, personally, I think it could appear disrespectful to a very generous offer. And it feels unnecessary. Like, I get that bringing this motion forward has kind of uncovered something that we maybe didn't consider before and we need to implement. But to defer this motion and put it off, we're not gonna meet again till what, July? We'll be gone. So it's to the discretion of this board. I feel like, I think Member Barber said that either way, it's probably gonna get up there. But we'll definitely probably miss the boat on arranging some type of.
Having said that, I think, my experience is that players, I think if everybody, including the family and, this gentleman, want this to happen, I don't think it's a one-time offer. Like, I don't think it should expire by a certain date. And that we should take unnecessary risks, because it's like, if you don't give me recognition, then you don't get a free jersey after July 1st. So it is my experience that players tend to come back at all stages of their career. So even when they're in the NHL, and that's, you know, very inspiring so I would hesitate. So just caution again, the board to precipitate something then that may not be time sensitive. Paula?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a lot of discussion about potential risks. We're opening ourselves up to risks. Can I seek clarification as to what exactly those risks are?
I think a few of them have been mentioned. I don't know if staff, I can certainly chime in.
Yeah,
Staff
we could outline it in further detail in a subsequent report, but certainly one of the risks, once you put something up, if you don't have a policy dictating how you're doing it, if you can't remove it. And that's one issue that's happened with one Ontario municipality. About 15 years ago, a municipality named a rec center in Northern Ontario after an individual. The individual was charged with child pornography, and the council held a secret closed meeting and removed his name from the building. He sued that municipality for that. So what we need in terms of liability and risk is something giving us complete control of what happens with that after we put it on our wall. There's no obligation for us to continue on. And if we do something further and remove something related to some individual, it is no reflection of, we're not making any statement. We just can't wait for them to have their day in court, essentially. So that's kind of the biggest risk, is that you're opening yourself up to making unintended statements about liability. Then the other things are just, you know, the design or how the board actually wants us to implement the policy. There's certainly been a lot of great athletes come from the community, and we don't want to upset any of them. So we could have a number of people come forward as soon as we do it, and hang us up. And when the other people come forward, we'd like to have a policy in place so that we could direct them to.
So is there a policy for Jack Balakat? So we just hung his picture up without one, and that's okay.
I likely a one-off.
So, but there's no risk then. If we're talking about risk and everything else, and yet we've got a picture up of a guy that made the NHL. And that's okay. And now all of a sudden we got somebody else, same situation, and we gotta have a big policy and a big pushback on it. It doesn't make any sense.
So, I just want to make sure what I'm hearing in the debate so far is that it's not a pushback against the recognition, is that it should be based on a clear criteria. There are risks that, associated with expectations. There are risks associated, it's really about managing expectations of, you know, previous athletes, future athletes, expectations of the community. I know in Malahide, we had an extensive discussion around even memorial object, a form of recognition. And it's amazing how quickly it gets complicated in terms of, once it goes on the wall, who has the right to remove it? Who does it stay there forever? If somebody then opposes, or we find out that there was a conflict in the community, it goes on and on and on. So there's a lot of history and case studies around these things that, like I said, in general, it's just good practice. When you're going to do any type of award, any type of recognition, the board should have a policy. The board can take risks. So previously, I don't know how that other item got on there, and maybe there is a risk. But this is this board, and this board has an option to choose not to take this risk and just put a few ducks in a row. We're not talking years of red tape here, so I'll allow a couple more comments on the debate, and then we'll take a vote. So Councillor DeRosier, Member DeRosier, Member Chapman, and Member Glinsky.
Actually, we can let them go first. I'll go at the end. That's okay. I'd rather, I don't think the trusters had a chance.
Okay, so I did recognize you first.
Sure.
Your hand was up first.
I just think that, I think this, like I said, I agree with having a policy put forward. If this motion has brought forward that or addressed that concern or raised that concern, yes, let's absolutely put a policy in place. I don't think that should hinder this. I think it should be a one-off, and everything else that follows can follow the due policy. No disrespect to any member here, staff here, municipality, but situations like this is exactly what's wrong with our governments. It shouldn't be made this complicated. This is a good news story. It should be celebrated. Like I said, if it's uncovered a discrepancy as far as policy goes, well, yeah, let's implement that policy. But let's not let it hinder us as far as recognizing this individual. Thank you.
Member Chapman.
Can I have, through you, can I have two comments?
Sure.
Okay, one is a question. How long would it take to develop the policy?
I believe Susie's already started to look at policy, so it would be before the next board's meeting.
Because there are templates, like, we're not inventing the wheel here. So yeah, there are good practices that so quickly.
And the second one, and you have to forgive me, I am not a hockey fan, so I may not use the right terms, but I'm just going to use an example of, there's a court case happening in London right at this moment. And it's in regards to, I think it's 5 young hockey players who are involved in a sex scandal.
So this is exactly why we need a policy in place. I'm not saying that every hockey player fits into this category, but what do we do if that happens to our player that we put up? So yeah, some people think that, oh, it's a one-off and it should just happen, but down the road, if something like this, or you talked about he was involved with child pornography, and do you just kind of like, oh, well, he won't do this? Well, I'm sorry, but human nature, people do things that you never expect them to do. So if there's no policies in place to remove that, then you're stuck with it, and I don't agree with that. So I'm not saying that this will happen, I'm just saying that it does happen.
Risk management. Member Lynn.
Madam Mayor, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't just go ahead with what was already planned. The fact that the shirt is coming, that we go ahead with and do the honors. And at this point in time, we also set up a committee to look into this. I guess Susie's already looking into it. And if you want a policy and a procedure for it, then so be it. But you know, you can have all the policies you want. You never know what the hell's going to happen. Thinking of those people in London, you never know those things. I'm not condoning it in any way, shape, or form, but we're not there right now. We're talking about a young fellow who's playing hockey in Kitchener, and he's doing well, and we should honor him for it. And then after this is out of the way, then we can take all the time we want to set up whatever kind of procedure we want, and then it'll be in place forever. Thank you.
Thank you for that debate. So there is a motion on the floor, so I will, I'll suggest that we vote on the motion that is on the floor currently. And then depending, there's always room to table another motion related to policy development, but let's dispose with what's on the floor currently.
Whereas Cameron Reed, a talented young athlete from our community, has achieved significant accomplishments in the world of hockey. And whereas Cameron's accomplishments serve as an inspiration to our community and a role model for youth athletes. And whereas Cameron has been a proud member of various local hockey organizations, including the Elmer Minor Hockey Association, and has advanced to represent Canada at international levels. Now therefore be it resolved that the ECC Board of Management hereby acknowledges Cameron Reed's outstanding achievements in hockey. And be it further resolved that the ECC Board of Management approve the following. 1, a display of recognition, and that the ECC Board approve the purchase of a display frame for an autographed jersey from Cameron Reed's current team, the Kitchener Rangers. The Reed family has generously agreed to provide the jersey for free. 2, event consideration, that the board directs staff to explore the possibility of organizing an event to honor Cam Reed's achievements, including a community skate event where Cam could interact with local residents, especially youth, and inspire the next generation of athletes. Be it finally resolved that the ECC Board of Management extend its heartfelt congratulations to Cameron Reed for his exceptional achievements and express pride in his success as a local athlete representing our community on the international stage.
Go there, but is it possible to amend the motion? So, can we amend the motion so that we say that we put a policy in place? Can we amend the motion so that if you want to have a special day for Cameron, but not put up the jersey yet until we've developed a policy, so that you still are recognizing them, but not to the full extent? And he has not been drafted to the NHL yet. So putting his jersey up could be something that we do when he is drafted.
Right, because there are several components in the motion, so there may be room for the board to consider. You know, the jersey is one thing. I think there's the event is another component, and there's also, I think, almost like a letter issued by the board that I think, did I get that right? So there are three components, so perhaps we could vote on each item separately,
Division of the question.
division of the question.
Yep.
Would that be favorable, agreeable by members? We'll take one aspect at a time. So on the first component, which was the first consideration, is it regarding the jersey?
Can read that.
So we can read so we'll vote just on the.
Madam Chair, point of order,
Mhm.
can we take amendment that's been brought up, or a motion that's been brought to us, and without the consent of the mover and the seconder, actually make that unless it's a friendly amendment?
Because we
I'm
would
asking.
not, yes, so good question. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because we're not modifying the motion, we're dividing the motion into three separate questions. We're not modifying, we're not amending. But we're allowing, three votes instead of one. I think, so technically, I don't think we need the permission from the mover and second.
Thank you.
So that first question,
That the EDCC Board of Management approve the purchase of a display frame for an autographed jersey from Cameron Reed's current team, the Kitchener Rangers. The Reed family has generously agreed to provide the jersey for free.
and does that involve or implies the hanging of the jersey in the complex?
Yes.
Okay, so on that question,
Is it a recorded vote?
would you like a recorded vote?
Well, the original motion was a recorded vote, so now all three are gonna be recorded, right?
I can clarify that. Is that your wish to have a recorded vote for each question?
That was my question.
Yes.
Is that
do
your
a
wish?
vote for
Okay.
all three.
All right. So we'll record the vote on each question. So on the jersey question,
Member Desrosiers,
Yes.
Member Chapman,
No,
Member Leach,
no,
Member Cerna,
Yes.
Member Lewis,
Yes.
Member Galinsky,
Yes,
Member Barber,
No,
Member Whitner,
Yes.
Mayor Cookett,
no,
Mayor Jiguer,
no.
so the motion is defeated on 5-5 tie vote.
So question number 2.
That the board directs staff to explore the possibility of organizing an event to honor Cam Reed's achievements, including a community skate event where Cam could interact with local residents, especially youth, and inspire the next generation of athletes.
question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can the mover waive the requirement for a recorded vote on this particular motion, or would she consider it?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And is there, is the question is about directing staff to explore, as opposed to organize. So does that mean the expectation is that the staff needs to come back to the board, at which point if we don't meet? I'm just trying to figure out the logistics of, and the intent of the motion. So is the actual intent is to direct staff to organize?
When is the next meeting of the board?
It's not scheduled, it would be at the call of the chair.
It could be at the call of the chair. So we could schedule an earlier meeting if we want to keep, if we want to explore. So as the author of the motion, could you expand on your wish to explore? So what does that look like? Are you expecting, would you like staff to come back with a proposal of what the event could look like and costs, or what does it mean to explore?
The least bureaucracy, the better. So, I
Right.
mean, at this stage, I think we're going to miss the boat regardless. So I could care less, to be honest, because we're gonna miss the boat, like whether they're
So
we're talking
aside-
to the family, whether we're bringing a report back to this board, like, we're gonna miss
So
the
I'm just
boat.
gonna go back, sticking to the facts, the motion that you proposed said direct staff to explore as of, May 14th. So we're just seeking clarification of your expectation when you say explore.
So my thought of how this process would work, minus the bureaucracy, would be that this would have been approved, this would have been a no-brainer. It would have
So
then been a
without-
discussion with the family, like, once this was approved. Arrangements would be made with the Reed family, so talking about when Cameron was available, when we would be getting the jersey, I would leave that with staff, that would be between staff and the family who are donating this and being generous with their offer. If arrangements weren't available because Cam gets drafted, or like, again, that was between staff. But I was looking for them to actually pursue it and organize.
So would you be willing to, you're one of the movers, right? So as a friendly amendment to say that staff, direct staff to organize an event. I think that would provide clearer direction, because Explore might feel like they need to come back with a proposal, and we don't have time for that. If we want something that is timely. So the motion would be amended that staff be directed to organize an event. Councilor Dinsky.
Madam Chair, I think this is a typical. It's not typical of all the Elmerites, but it's typical of people in authority to piss around with something like this. This is like the library. And 20 years down the road, we'll still be talking, somebody will be talking about it. Should we have a process? And I don't think that's the case, because that's what's just said.
So your
We
comment on
missed the
the,
vote.
thank you, Member Glinsky.
You're welcome.
So I don't think there's anyone's intention is to take 20 years to develop a policy. We've already talked about the next meeting. So I think we have a very productive staff and board. So this is not about bureaucracy and about 20-year delays. But the question right now that is being considered, and the vote that we will take, is regarding whether staff should be directed to organize an event as soon as possible, to not miss the vote on this opportunity to celebrate one of our community members. And I will appreciate everybody continuing to use a respectful, positive tone during this debate, because there is no one wanting anything negative in this. I think everybody's trying to fulfill their role as board members. So on the vote, we wish for a recorded vote.
Member Disrosier,
Yes.
member Chapman,
Yes.
member Leach,
Yes.
member Cerna,
Yes.
member Lewis.
Yes.
Member Galinsky.
Yes.
Member Barber,
Yes.
member Whitner. Yes. Mayor Cookit,
Yes.
Mayor Gier.
Yes. So the motion is carried.
Yes.
Thank you. The third question.
Which would be the referral.
So we'll find the vote. There was a question, remind me, the third component.
That the EEC Board of Management extend its heartfelt congratulations to Cameron Reed for his exceptional achievements and express pride in his success as a local athlete representing our community on the international stage.
So in the form of a letter or certificate of some kind, so
Is that be recorded?
do you wish for a recorded vote? Okay. So everybody's clear on the question, so the board would issue a letter of a certificate of some kind of recognition to Mr. Reed. You wish for a recorded vote? Yeah.
Member Disrosier,
You're up.
Yes.
member Chapman,
Yes.
Member Leach,
Yes.
member Cerna,
Yes.
member Lewis.
Yes.
Member Glinsky,
Yes.
member Barber,
Yes.
member Whitner,
Yes.
Mayor Cookit,
Yes.
Mayor Jagger.
Yes.
The vote is carried unanimously.
So do we wish to consider an additional motion, that the board direct staff to develop a policy? Member Cookit?
I will so move.
You move that, okay, and do I have a seconder? Member Cerna.
Well, I'm gonna help.
Thank you.
I already made it once, I told him again.
Thank you. So we have a mover and seconder, comments, questions?
I have a question, and this might not be the right spot, and we can ask after if need be, but
Certainly.
it's about this whole process. So
So if
Let's
it's
say-
about the process, no, that would not be the time to, like,
well, it's kind of about this, like about kind of going around the process, the policy. So I get why we're putting the policy in place, but
right,
out of curiosity, would it be able to deter the policy if someone was able to, let's say I myself purchased the frame. I got the jersey and I donate it to the facility. Is that still going to be part of the policy?
so based on the debate that I heard, that it's not about the donation, it's about having a criteria for what goes in gets publicly displayed in a public facility. Rob, did you want to add?
Just to put it into perspective too, staff would very much appreciate a policy. We've got a policy for the banners, which one go up. The user groups really are all over the map on some of those things. There's a reason there's no pictures in this room. There were pictures in this room of some of the teams. There was a vocal minority that had us take them out of this room because they felt this wasn't the right spot and move them back to the lobby. So once it gets donated, it's a whole new matter. So we would really, from staff's perspective, the policy is super key, tonight's debate, because like I said, there was pictures in here, there's none in here now. And they wanted them back in the lobby. You're gonna be running out of space. Who goes up, who comes down? Is it after the person has reached their highest level of achievement? This young player, you might be putting 6 jerseys on the wall if he goes on to win the Stanley Cup. So the policy should be broad enough to really capture as much as you can. It won't be perfect,
No, exactly. And
right?
And I certainly hope that everybody appreciates that. It's unfortunate that over the years, policies have been associated with red tape, bureaucracy, delays. That's just bad governance and bad management. Policy in and of themselves should be efficient and should facilitate quick decision-making process. So I would hate for all policies, all government, all bureaucracies to be thrown into this negative light. Policies, good fences make good neighbor, means that we can make decisions on the fly without a 3-hour debate on, and I've been part of those, and whether something should go on the wall or off the wall. If it takes 3 hours to make a decision, that means you have a bad policy or you're missing a policy. So, so there's a mover and seconder to develop a policy that will facilitate the process of decision-making, which is what we do. We can take the vote for further questions or comments. Member Leach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can the policy be crafted in such a way that it's retroactive to anything hanging in the building? A decision made so that if something tragic happens, like is currently in London, then everything within the structure is board or staff decision can be made on it rather than having to be stuck with it.
So I don't know if staff would be able to decide that today, but perhaps the request would be in developing the policy, could you include the sort of the retroactive aspect of it and what happens to existing assets and displays? Okay, great, thank you for that. Member Lewis.
But, you know, this is like backwards now, because I think now that we're gonna vote on a policy and we're gonna pass this policy,
well, maybe we should have passed the policy first. Because if we had the policy, I think everybody that voted no would vote yes to having a jersey. Is this like sort of backwards?
It's just that we don't, so the motion on the floor right now is to develop a policy.
Yeah,
We don't
100%,
know
I
the
support it,
policy.
great, 100%.
So that's why I think we'll be able to bring back, and perhaps, you know, even rescind the decision from this evening. Once there's a policy in place, perhaps the board will want to revisit the decision from this evening. So it's true that, but this has triggered, it's a great idea that has triggered a good discussion and that will trigger, it has highlighted the absence of a policy, so now we'll have a tool for the future. So you're right, like we'll go one step back in order to go two steps forward. And sometimes that's necessary.
Okay, so could another motion be made after this one then? That if the policy is proceeded, that maybe the jersey could be hung in case somebody does pick it up and picks up a frame, so that we don't miss the window of the opportunity.
We can't, I don't think we can this evening, because we will need to agree on a policy together. And then apply this request. So this would be a request, and then we would have a discussion as to.
But staff was gonna retro it so that anything that was on the wall is gonna be under that policy.
They're going to consider what we should do with the existing assets. And I think so that will allow us to have a discussion about any previous request. So it will be just a more guided discussion. So for sure, I think any decisions which has led to something being on the wall or to something not being on the wall currently, we'll be able to revisit all of that. Right now, we're just missing a tool. So
You got two strong marriages and you can still get the shit done.
Member Whitner.
Yeah, thank you. Just have a comment. This has really got silly in my opinion. This is for a jersey or sweater on. But I'd almost like to apologize to the Reed family that his name was brought up with rapists and child pornographers. That should never been brought up. Cause that's just demeaning. I would like to see it hung up. I guess Councilor Lewis had a good idea. You wanted to put that in the motion, can you do that? It's gonna be retro anyway.
I was one of the movers that made the first one, for the first actual one. I think I was one of them.
Right.
Can I rescind it? Can we bring it back to the floor then after this?
So what I'm trying to say is that this board won't be equipped to consider. So to consider a new proposition or to even rescind, we need another meeting. We need a policy in front of us. So, and I agree with you, Member Whitner, it is really, really unfortunate that this discussion has then mixed a lot of different topics. But I almost, yeah, I almost wish I had less experience and that was a bit more naive because I just know, and I wish other people, well, I don't know, like I've just seen these situations go really wrong. And I don't wish that on this board. And it's not pleasant and it feels bureaucratic. But like I said, I wish I didn't have the experiences that I've had that have convinced me that policies are necessary. So, yes, I'll leave it at that. So on the motion to direct staff to develop a policy to help us guide those decisions. No further debate. So on the question, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you for excellent debate. And this brings us to inquiries by members. Member Chapman.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the inquiry is, you said that it shouldn't take too long to make policy. Is there any chance that we have a meeting sooner than we normally do to approve the policy so that there may be a possibility of getting the jersey hung up in a reasonable amount of time? Is that a reasonable request?
Certainly.
Susie's away this week, that's why she's not here, I'll sit down with her next week. We'll start developing it and try to get some options. Because our intention is to provide policy options for the board to consider and select what options you want to implement with this. It's certainly something that we want you to have the control over, but yeah, there's no issue. If this is a priority of the board, for pulling the board back together sooner.
Follow the chair.
Yeah, so I think we'll coordinate with staff, and if that's the wish of the board, we'll try to expedite this, and we can call a meeting to, if we feel that we can make this happen, because I do believe it is everyone's wish. So thank you for that. Any other inquiries? Member Whitner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Let's have an inquiry. This has to do with some comments from members of the public. I think we all agree this building's here to sell services, correct? Does anybody disagree with that? I've been to several of these meetings, but the library. Some of the comments made about this building are wrong. Soviet style bunkers. It looks like a Soviet style bunker with no windows. I looked up the Soviet style bunker. No, it's not like a Soviet style bunker. And it's pretty demeaning to the people that engineered and designed it because they donated heavily towards that. So I wouldn't be very impressed if I was their company. Secondly, there's been a lot of flippant comments about the farm area, about the cows and the smells, and just childish schoolyard comments. They need to stop. They really do. It's really upsetting a lot of farmers in this area. Like I drive in from the north, I smell the pot smell, but nobody complains about that. Anyway, there'd be positive comments about this place, but go a whole long way to maybe promoting more business. Because if you were looking on the internet about this place and you hear all you hear is about cows and smells, Soviet style bunker, what would you do? You'd walk away, wouldn't you? I would. Anyway, it's demeaning to all those farms around here, and I think it needs to stop. And we need to start making this a positive experience instead of a negative experience. Thank you.
Any comments, inquiries? Don't have a closed session, so the next meeting will be at the call of the chairs. And so a motion to adjourn,
That the board do now adjourn at 8:24 p.m.
mover and seconder, please. Member Barber moves, member DeRosa seconds, all those in favor? That is carried. Nice evening. That's